Homeless man saved a crying baby left in trash. Billionaire called him useless street animal. Next day, DNA test shook the empire. The rain was coming down like an angry god, pouring buckets and hammering on the tin roofs of the Mototo slum with a deafening roar. Lightning tore across the pitch-black night sky, briefly illuminating this maze pieced together from abandoned shipping containers, torn plastic sheets, and rusty corrugated iron. Water gushed down crooked drainpipes, turning into muddy streams that ridged through the narrow alleyways, sweeping away soggy Boe road boxes and rotting vegetable scraps. Kabusa was huddled behind the huge, rusted-out shell of an abandoned refrigerator. This long-dead metal beast was his only shelter tonight. Rain still seeped in through the cracks, soaking the only decent piece of clothing he had left, a faded, old DRK blue sweater with frayed cuffs, knitted for him by his late wife. He hugged his knees tightly, trying to preserve some RMTH. Kabusa, in his 40s, had messy, graying hair and a face deeply lined with hardship and exhaustion. His eyes were cloudy, like old glass covered in dust. He used to be a village schoolteacher. He could recite the entire Bible and draw the sun and trees on a black board with chalk. But that was a long time ago. His land was forcibly taken by a big corporation for a development project, and the compensation money was pocketed by the village chief and local officials. His wife died in childbirth. He ride her over miles of muddy mountain paths to the clinic, only to be told, no beds available. By the time he got back, she was already cold. Despair and alcohol consumed him. He lost his job, lost his home, and eventually, like a dead leaf, was blown by the wind of fate to the Urbage Mountains on the edge of the bustling city of Kalamba, Mototo. He was long used to hunger, to the disdainful or fearful looks from passers-by, to digging through trash for scrap metal he could trade for a few shillings. The world, for him, had been reduced to numb survival and endless rainy nights. He closed his eyes, trying to use memories of sunlight to drive away the bone-deep chill, but all that came to mind was his wife's final, agonized moans. Just then, an incredibly faint, heart-wrenching cry pierced the sound of the pouring rain and reached his ears. Kabusa's eyes snapped open. His heart felt like it was being squeezed. He thought it was a hallucination, the sound of rain hitting a plastic bag. But the cry came again, short, sharp, desperate, like a kitten abandoned in the wild. It was coming from the towering, stinking garbage pile not far away. Who's there? Kabusa croaked, his voice swallowed by the storm. He instinctively tried to shrink further into the shadow of the fridge. Forget it. What doesn't Mototo have? Dead cats, dead dogs, even dead babies. It wasn't unheard of. In corners of poverty and despair, unwanted infants were sometimes disposed of as bad omens or burdens too heavy to carry. He'd seen it. Once, twice. He forced himself not to look, not to think. But the cry came again, even weaker than before, as if it would stop any second. There was something in that sound, a cold needle that pierced right through the numbness shrouding his heart. That's not a cat, not a dog. That's a living, dying baby's cry. It sounded so much like his own daughter's last, weak gasp on that crude delivery bed all those years ago. Tara, he murmured his daughter's name unconsciously. His body moved before his mind could process it. He scrambled out from behind the fridge, ignoring the icy mud instantly soaking his worn-out shoes and pants, and stumbled toward the stinking Garbage Mountain. He frantically clawed through layers of wet plastic bags, rotten vegetables, broken glass, and sour-smelling food waste. His fingers were cut by glass and scraped by rusty metal, but he didn't feel a thing. Rain and sweat mixed and streamed into his eyes. Finally, under a pile of moldy mattresses and shattered TV parts, his hands found a bundle of cold, soaked cloth. Trembling, he pulled it aside. A pitifully thin, tiny baby was curled up there, covered in filth, lips turning blue, skin icy cold, its little chest rising and falling faintly. What broke his heart most was the umbilical cord, still attached to a bloody placenta, roughly wrapped in a dirty rag. She had been abandoned just after birth. My God! Kabusa gasped. A wave of immense pity and a long dormant, almost primal protectiveness washed over him. With extreme care, as if holding a priceless treasure, he lifted the icy little life into his arms. The baby seemed to sense a trace of RMTH and let out another weak whimper. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Kabusa whispered hoarsely. Almost instinctively, he took off his only relatively dry piece of clothing, the old sweater. Using all his strength, he clumsily but gently wrapped the baby in it, layer upon layer, holding her tight against his own cold chest, trying to share his body heat. The sweater still seemed to carry the faint, lingering scent of the soap nuts his wife used when she knitted it. He looked around. This endless darkness, this pouring rain, this beige mountain reeking of death, this was no place for this little life to survive. The clinic. Amina. He thought of the community clinic 3 kilometers away, supported by an international aid group. A nurse named Amina worked there. She was one of the few people who didn't look at him like he was trash. He had to get the baby there. Clutching the infant, Kabusa charged into the downpour like a wounded animal. The muddy path was slippery as grease. He ran, stumbling, the tiny life in his RMS his only beacon. Every time he slipped, he used every ounce of strength to steady himself, making sure the baby wouldn't fall. The rain lashed his face, cold water poured down his neck, but the faint breath of the baby in his RMS was his only anchor in this desperate, rainy night that he didn't know how long it took. When he finally staggered through the clinic's creaky wooden door, he was nearly collapsing. Amina, about to leave for the day, was shocked by his appearance. Kabusa. You. Her eyes immediately went to the bundle in his RMS. She rushed over. Seeing the baby's blue lips and weak breathing, her professional instincts kicked in instantly. In the trash, found her, please, help. Kabusa panted, his voice a ragged, almost inaudible whisper. Amina sprang into action, expertly checking the baby's vitals and cleaning off the filth. Kabusa stood frozen in a corner like a statue. Dripping wet, his soaked sweater clinging to him. He watched Amina work, watched the tiny, almost invisible chest struggle to rise and fall under an oxygen mask, his ERT in his throat. Premature, severe hypothermia, risk of infection, but there's hope, Amina said, finally letting out a relieved breath. She looked at Kabusa, her expression complicated. Kabusa, you saved her life. But, what now you? She hesitated, not knowing how to say it. A homeless man who could barely feed himself, how could he care for a fragile infant needing constant attention? Kabusa was strangely firm. He walked to the bassinet and looked through the glass at the tiny, wrinkled face. Nurse, let me stay. I'll sleep on the floor, the hallway, anywhere. Just let her live. His voice was quiet, but it held a calm, unshakable resolve. Amina saw that long-absent, stubborn light in his eyes and remembered he used to be a teacher. She sighed. Kabusa. You can't even feed yourself. How will you feed a child? She needs formula, diapers, medicine, all that costs money. Kabusa was silent for a moment, his gaze fixed on the baby. Then, he gently touched his soaked old sweater with his rough fingers, as if feeling for a trace of warmth left in it. He looked up, his voice low and clear, carrying a piece that had come through immense grief. Nurse, when she cried, that sound, it was like my daughter's last breath. He didn't finish, but Amina understood. This wasn't just a rescue. It felt like a delayed attempt to mend a deep, personal regret. Just then, while cleaning the baby, Amina noticed a thin, cheap silver chain on her tiny wrist, almost completely covered in grime. She carefully cleaned it. Faint letters were engraved on it, ZTX. What was this? A rich family's marque? Some kind of curse? A sense of foreboding stirred in Amina's ERT. Meanwhile, in the penthouse of the Zhao Corporation Tower in the ERT of Kalamba, Zhao Tianxiong was holding a glass of red wine, looking down at the blurred, rain-shrouded darkness where the slum lay. His personal doctor had just left, bringing good news. Mr. Zhao, your wife is well. A healthy boy. Mother and child are both safe. A smug smile spread across Zhao Tianxiong's face as he read to call the BOA RD with the news. The doctor hesitated, then added in a low voice, however, the obstetrics nurse mentioned, there seemed to be a girl too, but your wife had a severe hemorrhage. The situation was critical, all efforts were on saving her. By the time things stabilized and the nurse went to check, the girl had already been treated as medical waste, stuffed into a garbage truck and taken away. Officially, declared red stillborn. The doctor's voice trailed off. Zhao Tianxiong's smile froze, then twisted into an icy sneer. He swirled the wine in his glass, the crimson liquid spun like congealed blood. He said coldly, almost to himself, just a girl. Weak from the start. Would have been a burden anyway. Good riddance. Make sure the media doesn't get wind of this nonsense. It'll ruin my mood. He drained his glass in one gulp and looked back out at Matoto in the rainy night, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. Trash belongs in the trash heap. He would never imagine that in the very Garbage mountain he saw as filth, the trashy disque ride was being held tight in WRM and the ARMS of a man he saw as a street animal, wrapped in an old sweater. And that faint cry had already, quietly, torn the first crack in his empire. Kabusa slept on the clinic floor that night, holding Tala close. The old sweater became both the baby's swaddle and the father's blanket. In the EARLY morning, when the first weak rays of sunlight came through the clinic's dirty window, Tala let out her first healthy, loud cry. It was clear and full of life, like a tiny beam of light that instantly cut through the gloom that had weighed on Kabusa's heart for years. After checking her, Amina announced with happy surprise, her temperature is normal. The risk of infection is going down. She's going to make it. Kabusa's rough fingers trembled as he gently touched Tala's soft, pink cheek. The WRM feeling made his eyes well up. He named the baby girl he found in the trash Tala, which means sta light in Swahili. She was the only light in the ruins of his life. But this faint sta light was soon overshadowed. A young, eager reporter from the community clinic's radio station wrote a short piece about the homeless man who saved a baby in the rain, and it aired on the local community broadcast. This HERTWA remaining story was like a small stone thrown into a pond, making ripples. Nobody expected that an editor from a national news website would pick it up and give it a shocking new headline, A Saint in Matoto Homeless Man Kabusa Adopts Mysterious Abandoned Baby. It came with a blurry picture of Kabusa holding baby Tala and a close-up of his weathered, right face. The news spread like wildfire. Pictures of Kabusa and Tala showed up in newspapers and even on TV news tickers. People in the Matoto slum were talking. Some admired him, while others shook their heads. Kabusa's lost his mind. He can't even take care of himself. How can he raise a child? That baby must be bad luck. Why else would she be left in the trash? The real storm sta root at the Zhao Group, which owned the East Africa Express, East Africa Television, and lots of websites. Zhao Tianxiong's PR team immediately smelled risk. A homeless man becoming a hero. This went completely against the story they always pushed, that the poor were the problem and the rich were the solution. Even worse, the ZTX on that silver chain was flagged in their internal system like a ghost. Even though the birth records were locked down tight, a seed of doubt had been planted in Zhao Tianxiong's mind. So the next morning, the East Africa Express front page ran another story, written in a cold tone, behind the hero, the glorified homeless man and the health risks of the foundling. The article quoted anonymous medical experts who played up Kabusa's mental instability, suggested his long-term homelessness meant he could carry unknown germs, and hinted that his reasons for taking the baby were suspicious, that he might be using public sympathy for begging. It even included warnings that contact with such individuals could pose a potential risk to the infant and public health. The photo showed a close-up of Kabusa digging through garbage, his dirty face and torn clothes magnified, his eyes empty, making him look like a dangerous, unreliable wild man. Public opinion flipped instantly. Comments flooded in. There's a reason he's pitiful. Don't let your do-gooder feelings blind you. The government should take that child to an orphanage. A man like him can't raise her. On Zhao's TV channels, Kabusa's story was edited into a documentary called City's Edge. The narrator spoke in a superior, pitying, and slightly mocking tone, describing Matoto as a lawless place full of chaos, disease, and raw desire. Kabusa was just a primitive sample struggling to survive there. Kabusa knew nothing about this. He was clumsily learning how to mix formula with water and how to change Tala's diapers. When he tried to take her out to the community squa for some sun, reporters with cameras blocked his way. Mr. Kabusa, do you think you're fit to be a father? Camera flashes blinded him. How will you provide for her? Government handouts, or are you planning to use her for begging? Do you know how much responsibility And money it takes to raise a child. Can you give her a normal childhood? The Shah RP questions cut like knives. Kabusa held Tala, protecting her like a fragile treasure. His lips moved, but no words came out. He just held her tighter, using his own thin body to shield her from the bright lights and loud noises. His silence was taken as guilt and incompetence, making the reporters push even harder. Right at that chaotic moment, Zhao Tianxiong was at a fancy East Africa elite charity gala that he sponsored. Crystal chandeliers glittered, champagne flowed, and the rich and powerful mingled. A waiter quietly handed him a phone showing video clips from the reporters and a summary of the East Africa Express article. Zhao, a little drunk, glanced at the screen. He saw Kabusa's, Fangda, enlarged, magnified, Beilong, disheveled, in a sorry state face and words like homeless man, abandoned baby, and health risk. A mix of offended anger and superiority washed over him. He took the microphone, his face flushed with alcohol and a cruel smile. He raised his glass to the room. Everyone, a toast to Lusanga's progress. But on the road to progress, there are always, useless street animals. He paused, enjoying the sudden silence and the knowing laughter that followed. Digging through trash like wild dogs, trying to snatch bones that don't belong to them. Their very existence is an insult to a civilized society. We should be grateful they clean up the garbage, but we must never invite them into our living rooms, and we must never let them dirty our children's cribs. He emphasized the words street animals, his eyes sweeping the room with contempt. This off-the-cuff speech was caught by the gala's private photographer and quickly cut into a short video. It went viral through Zhao's social media networks. #useless street animal instantly became a national trending topic. Kabusa's image was, shady, completely, thoroughly, dingzai, nailed to, Kairuju, Pilla are a shame as a social parasite and a dirty wild dog. Mutoto exploded. Anger flowed through the slum's alleyways like lava. People knew Kabusa had saved the baby. They had seen him running through the rain with the child and staying up all night at the clinic. Now, the man they saw as Sta Light's father was being called a street animal by the tiger living up on the hill who controlled everything. What do they think we are real wild dogs? A young trash collector yelled. Teacher Kabusa saved a child. And they call him an animal, then what are they devils? Women holding their own children said, TRS in their eyes. Smash Zhao stores. They don't deserve to make money in Mutoto. Angry young men gathered. That night, 3 convenience stores on the edge of the slum with the Zhao Group sign were smashed. Their windows shattered. Police showed up quickly but only scattered the crowd for show, ignoring the ringleaders. Everyone knew the police chief was a regular guest at Zhao Tianxiong's paradise. In the eye of this storm, a small figure was trembling in a late-night office. Lena, a junior editor in the Zhao Group's news department, a quiet young woman with black-rimmed glasses, was responsible for sorting through the gala footage. When she saw the video of a drunk Zhao Tianxiong saying street animal, a chill went down her spine. She thought of her own parents who grew up in a slum, and the RMTH of neighbors helping each other in her childhood. She secretly used her phone to record that key video and audio. Meanwhile, deep in Mutoto, in a small shack made from an old shipping container, a blind elder, Mzijomo, sat on a grass mat. He had heard from his grandson about the trouble outside and the poisonous words street animal. The old man's wrinkled face was very serious. He felt around and took out an ancient charam wrapped in animal skin. In a low, aged voice, speaking in a tribal language only his grandson understood, he said slowly, "Child, remember this. When the powerful use words to crush a good man, when wealth blinds people to what's right, the anger of our ancestors is already lit. The Sta light abandoned in the filth will eventually light up the darkness that try to swallow her. And that man who calls himself a tiger, his empire is built on sand." The old man's thin finger pointed in the direction of Kabusa and Tala. "Go tell Kabusa, the ZTX on the silver chain isn't a name. In the old Zambezi legends, it means child of the Zambezi, the exiled royal bloodline that will return from the dust to take back what was stolen. This is not a curse. It is a prophecy." The storm kept growing. Amid the anger and humiliation, Kabusa became even more determined to protect Tala. And Amina, while sorting Tala's things, looked again at the small silver chain. ZTX. Child of the Zambezi, a terrifying thought hit her like lightning. Trembling, she found the clinic's only old computer and struggled to see RCH for the public emblem of the Zhao Tianxiong family. It was an abstract lightning Z shape twisted around the letters T and X. The designs weren't identical, but the core elements were shockingly similar. She slammed the laptop shut, her heart pounding, her back soaked with cold sweat. She ran to Kabusa's simple shelter, her voice shaking with fear and excitement. Kabusa! This child! Tala, her silver chain, it's connected to Zhao Tianxiong's family RK? She might be. She couldn't say the rest. A man called a street animal by a billionaire was raising the billionaire's own, Xinqing, biological, own, child, daughter, abandoned in the trash. This truth was more suffocating than any storm. Amina's words hit Kabusa's small shack like a silent thunderclap. In the dim light of a kerosene lamp, he was using an old cloth dipped in water to gently wipe Tala's face. The baby seemed to sense the adult's tension, squirming and letting out little whimpers. Kabusa's hand froze mid-air, the cloth dripping. He slowly looked up at Amina, his tired eyes wide with shock, disbelief, and a deeper feeling of being cruelly messed with by fate one too many times. Zhao Tianxiong. Kabusa's voice was dry, like sandpaper. That big man living in the golden house on the hill, his daughter. He looked down at the tiny life in his RMS, the baby he'd dug out of the trash, wrapped in his old sweater, and was feeding with his meager aid money and Amina's help. The world felt like it was spinning. The man who called him a street animal was this baby's father, and that father threw her into the garbage. Amina nodded hard, her face pale. Kabusa, look at this chain. She held up the tiny silver chain, comparing it in the lamplight. I checked. The Zhao group symbol uses the letters Z, T, and X. They're the same letters. And... She lowered her voice. SCA read, Zijomo said that in the old stories, ZTX means child of the Zambezi, the RK of an exiled royal family. It's too much to be a coincidence. Child of the Zambezi. Kabusa repeated softly. The words felt strange and distant to him. He used to be a teacher, he knew the Zambezi was a great African river. But an exiled royal family. That sounded more like one of Zijomo's bedtime stories. Yet the cold chain on the baby's wrist and the real fear in Amina's eyes made it hard to dismiss. A baby girl, thrown away by a rich man, marked with his family's symbol, saved by a homeless man. It was a tragedy so absurd it had to be true. What did the elder say? Kabusa's voice held a thread of hope. The elder said it's an ancestor's prophecy, a warning to the arrogant. Amina took a deep breath. He said those who insult good people will face their downfall. Tala, she's not trash. She is sta light. Her return will shake the empire built on sand. Just then, the shack door opened quietly. The blind elder, Zijomo, walked in, helped by his grandson. He wore a faded old robe, his long white hair tied with a faded red cloth. His deep, empty eye sockets seemed to see everything. He walked straight to Kabusa, a thin hand outstretched. Child, give me the chain. Trembling, Kabusa placed the chain in the old man's hand. Zijomo slowly, refully ran his calloused fingertips over the tiny letters. The movement felt like an ancient, solemn ritual. The shack was dead silent, except for Tala's soft sounds and the kerosene lamp sputtered. After a long time, the elder let out a deep, heavy sigh. That seemed to come from the EARTH itself. ZTX. He chanted in a low, strong Swahili voice. Child of the Zambezi. 100 years ago, by the Zambezi River, in the Mwin Kingdom, a good prince refused to work with colonizers and greedy miners. He protected his people's sacred mountain and water. He was betrayed and sent into exile. Before he left, he gave his family's mark of life, a cha-rmca ved with ZTX, to his most loyal Gua road. He told him, when my bloodline cries in the dust, when the powerful treat goodness like trash, this ma-RK will show the way home, to take back the glory that was stolen. The Gua RD's descendants, it is said, hid in this very land. The elder's empty eyes turned Tawa RD Kabusa, his voice suddenly RP now, this ma-RK apars on the wrist of a baby girl thrown away by her own father into the filth. And the man who saved her was called a street animal by that same powerful man. Kabusa, this is no accident. The spirits of our ancestors are re-answering. The exiled blood has returned in the humblest form, and the thief, in his pride, is uncovering his own crime. His empire's foundation is rotten. It waits only for this sta light to shine on it, and it will fall like a tower of sand. The elder's words felt like an ancient spell, full of a terrifying sense of destiny. A chill went up Kabusa's spine, but at the same time, a new fire, a mix of anger and responsibility, sta root burning in his cold heart. He looked down at Tala, sleeping peacefully in his arms, her cheeks rosy, breathing softly. He thought of his own lost daughter, his wife's final pain, his numb days digging through trash. If Tala was truly that powerful man's daughter, then her fate was decided at birth by her father's greed and cruelty. And he, the man called an animal, was now her only light. Elder. Kabusa's voice was strangely firm, full of a new strength. No matter whose daughter she is my Tala now. I will protect that sta light. Even if that tiger comes, I will use these animal hands to tear his lies apart. A faint, almost invisible smile seemed to touch the elder's lips, as if he sensed this new courage in the DRK. He gently placed the chain back in Kabusa's hand. Remember, child, true power isn't what you have. It's what you protect. Tala is the sta light, and you are the vessel that holds her. Go. Let the seed of truth grow in this Ba Renland. But danger was getting closer. Lena, the young editor who had recorded Zhao Tianxiong's street animal speech, was under huge pressure. She decided she had to do something. Using a late-night work excuse, she sneaked into the deepest, top-secret server room in the Zhao Group's archives. Using a half-remembered password and a stolen access card, she struggled through layers of security. Finally, she found the backup files from the maternity hospital. The screen clear RLY showed Mrs. Zhao's delivery records, twins. A boy, healthy, named Zhao Chengya. A girl, underweight at birth, with a minor, non-life-threatening, HERT murmur, diagnosed as developmentally delayed, red medical waste, disposal method, high-temperature incineration. But Lena's mouse scrolled frantically, looking for an incineration certificate or any follow-up document. There was nothing. No record she was ever burned. This meant the baby girl red dead was never incinerated. She was stuffed into a garbage truck. Lena's heart almost stopped. Cold sweat soaked her shirt. Trembling, she copied the key pages onto an encrypted USB drive and quickly deleted her access history. Just as she was about to leave, the door lock beeped softly. Someone was coming. She hid in the shadows of a huge server rack, holding her breath. Through a gap, she saw two men in black suits. Walk in. They looked like security, their faces blank. One held a tablet, checking logs. Lena clamped a hand over her mouth, not making a sound until they left. She collapsed to the floor. The USB drive felt like a hot brand in her hand. She knew what she held could destroy an empire and get her killed. Meanwhile, Zhao Tianxiong was getting more and more worried. His initial mockery of the ZTX story was now a sword hanging over his head. He couldn't control all the information, especially now that the street animal and foundling story was being linked to his family RK. He needed to handle this problem. He called in his head of security, a cold-eyed ex-soldier. That baby, Tala, and that homeless man, Kabusa. Zhao Tianxiong's voice was icy. Not looking at the Gua Road, they'd become a problem. A piece of medical waste that should have rotted in a dump shouldn't be in a clinic or in the news. That homeless man, he's staining the Zhao name. Go to Mutodo. Find a chance to handle the child. Make it clean. Make it look like an accident. A slum fire, maybe. Or bad food. Remember, leave no trace back to me. As for that animal, make him disappear into the garbage forever. The security chief nodded, his face blank. Understood, boss. Leave it to me. Night fell over Mutoto again. Kabusa held Tala, walking back to his shack. The air felt heavy tonight.
NEA the Zhao convenience store, he thought he saw well-dressed strangers loitering. An animal-like instinct made him tense up. He walked faster, holding Tala tight against his chest. He didn't know that two pairs of eyes, hidden in the DRK, were watching them like predators. The storm was gathering silently. And the little silver chain seemed to glow in the DRK with a silent warning from 100 years ago. Kabusa held Tala close as he hurried through the maze-like alleys of Mutoto. The muddy ground made every step heavy, but he didn't dare stop. Those two pairs of eyes watching from the shadows felt like icy needles pricking the back of his neck. Instinctively, he ducked into a dead-end alley cluttered with old tires and broken furniture, pressing his back against the wet tin wall, his heart pounding. Tala squirmed in his arms, sensing his tension, letting out tiny whimpers. Kabusa patted her gently with his rough fingers, whispering urgently, "Don't be SCA red, Tala. Daddy's here. Daddy's got you." Just then, a small figure slipped out from behind a stack of crates like a cat. Kamani, a 12-year-old trash picker with sharp, watchful eyes. Panting, he hissed, "Teacher Kabusa. Quick! Nurse Amina sent me. Strangers in black, like cops but not cops, are re-asking about you and Tala. They're bad news." Kabusa's stomach dropped. The danger was here. Before he could ask more, a sharp whistle cut through the air, Mutoto's warning signal. Within seconds, answering whistles echoed through the alleys, weaving a net of Allah RM. Come on. Kamani grabbed Kabusa's sleeve, dragging him through the slum's tangled pathways until they ducked into a storage hut made from an old oil drum. Old Mosi, a 1-year Medwar veteran fixing a bike outside, took one look at them and silently pointed behind the drums. But outside, Kabusa sta rude. Shu. Mosi raised a finger, listening. Sure enough, two bulky men in black jackets and sunglasses read at the alley's mouth, scanning every shack. Zhao Tianxiong's thugs. They prowled for 10 minutes before leaving empty-handed. When the coast was clear, Mosi exhaled, clapping Kabusa's shoulder. Don't worry. In Mutoto, no one fights alone. Tala's ours now. Nobody touches her. Word spread like wildfire. Amina confirmed the thug's presence over the community radio, a solar-powered old receiver. The elder's grandson pounded out warnings on tribal drums, the deep rhythm Ryan-coded messages, locations, numbers, directions. Teacher Kabusa saved Tala, he's our hero. Zhao wants to silence Tala. Threw his own daughter away like trash. Tala is Mutoto's sta light. Hands off. Anger and resolve burned through every tin shack. A Talagua road formed overnight. Trash pickers, their sharp eyes patrolled the city, watching for Zhao's black cars, signaling with hand signs. Women, led by Amina, they stood watch Near Kabusa's hut, met with chili powder sprays in old cans. They gathered food and clothes too. Kids, nimble as rats, boys like Kamani de route through alleys and over roofs, relaying messages faster than adults. Elders, at the community center, a repurposed shipping container, the blind elder presided as Tala's name was read onto the Ukumbi wa Moyo, the tribal tree of life tapestry. Tala Kabusa, he declared read, voice trembling but firm, is now Mutoto's blood. Hirm her, and you rm us all. The tapestry hung proudly, transforming Tala from a rescued orphan into a symbol proof that hope could bloom even in Garbage. But the storm wasn't over. Zhao's men returned on another stormy night, rain hammering roofs like war drums. Perfect cover for an accident. Kabusa and Tala slept deep inside their shack, right by Mosi and two others. Suddenly, Mosi jerked awake. Soft footsteps, not rain, crept toward the back wall. He blew his whistle, but the wind swallowed the sound. Then, magic, as if by some silent signal, hundreds of shacks erupted in chaos. People ran outside not to flee, but to bang pots, pans, buckets, anything metal, with all their might. The deafening clangor, mixed with shouts and whistles, became Mutoto's cry. Torches, rags dipped in oil, FLA red in the rain like vengeful stars. The thugs froze, terrified. From every alley poured men, women, kids, med with sticks, shovels, or fists, screaming, "Get out of Mutoto! Tala stays!
They formed a human wall around Kabusa's hut as the thugs fled into the night. When police arrived, led by Zhao's bribed captain, they found only angry slum dwellers protecting a baby. Hearing chants of Zhao sent killers, the captain paled, mumbled about neighbor disputes, and slunk away. As the rain eased, torches lit exhausted but triumphant faces.
Kamani scrambled onto a roof, yelling, they ran.
Tala's safe.
Cheers erupted, Warmer now, full of hope.
Kabusa stood in his doorway, Tala asleep in his RMS, watching his neighbors, people who once avoided him, united as one.
The Tree of Life tapestry flapped in the wind, its embers glowing.
This man, who'd believed himself a street animal, felt truly alive for the first time. TRS mixed with rain on his face. This was just the beginning, but Matoto had read, when dignity was at stake, even the forgotten could. The Kamwa Ryers Gua riding their own light. The pots and pans a la RM of Matoto and that rainy night standoff were like a ha-RD slap across the face of Zhao Tianxiong's seemingly unshakable empire. The story spread fast through small independent papers and online forums, even catching the attention of international human rights groups. The man he called a street animal, the baby girl he'd ordered disposed of, and the incredible unity of the entire Matoto slum became a national and international talking point.
Hashtags like hashtag Matoto protects STA Light and hashtag Zhao cover-up blew up online.
The huge wave of public outrage put Zhao's public image on the verge of collapse. He was furious. He ordered a complete news blackout and lawsuits against the rumor-spreading media and the violent slum residents. But this time, his media machine failed him. More and more independent journalists and reporters with a conscience STA route pushing back.
Digging into Matoto.
They filmed Kabusa's daily life with Tala in his simple shack. They took pictures of Amina checking on Tala in the clinic. They filmed the name Tala Kabusa on the Tree of Life tapestry. They recorded residents telling the story of how Kabusa saved the baby in the rain. These real, simple, deeply human images created a GLA ring contrast with the Zhao Group's CA fully crafted image of elite charity. Even bigger pressure came from overseas. The UN Committee on the Rights of the Child and Amnesty International got involved, demanding the Lusanga government fully investigate the Zhao abandoned baby case and the death threats against the witness, Kabusa. Under intense global pressure, the reluctant Lusanga government finally set up a special investigation team with judges, independent medical experts, and international observers.
They made one key decision: Tala would undergo a mandatory, UN-supervised DNA paternity
test to determine her biological father. The news sent Matoto into a mix of celebration and intense fear. Our hope and terror were tangled together.
Kabusa held Tala, sitting beneath the Tree of Life tapestry with the blind elder.
The elder's empty eyes seemed to see through time itself. He said slowly, "The storm is here.
We are in its eye.
Whether the sand tower falls or the STA light dies, all will be decided tomorrow. But remember, Kabusa, no matter the result, you have already built the first wall to protect her.
You are her father."
Up in his mansion, Zhao Tianxiong looked out his huge window over the city lights, his face like the RK iron.
His EARLY arrogance was now pure anxiety.
He gathered his most trusted aides, running through every possible scenario. Finally, he made a move that looked confident but was a desperate gamble. He held a huge press conference. Facing cameras from around the world, wearing a Shah RP suit, he looked calm. "Everyone," Zhao's voice was steady and strong, "I understand the public's concern. I deeply regret this unfortunate case of an abandoned child. But the malicious slander against me, the vile suggestions that I would abandon my own flesh and blood, are utterly ridiculous. To clear my name completely and to help this innocent child find her true place, I, Zhao Tianxiong, publicly agree to the DNA test." He paused, a smug, almost mocking smile on his lips. "Furthermore, I announce here and now, if the test proves that the baby girl held by that homeless man Kabusa is my biological daughter, I will donate 1 billion shillings on the spot to help abandoned children nationwide."
He emphasized 1 billion, trying to crush all doubt with the weight of his money. The room of journalists erupted.
Camera flashes went wild. He had successfully turned a forced investigation into a show of generosity and confidence, using money to try and silence criticism and shifting the pressure back onto Kabusa. If the test was negative, Kabusa would be seen as a lying extortionist. After the conference, back in his office, Zhao sneered at his aide, "A billionaire drop in the bucket compa red to my empire. As long as the result is no, that street animal and his little brat will be a joke from the garbage dump. Let the world see him humiliate himself." What Zhao didn't know was that his elderly mother, a former midwife from the countryside, watched his big announcement on TV with a heart full of pain. Her hands shaking, she pulled out an old photo album wrapped in oiled paper. Inside was a yellowed newborn footprint clearly showing two tiny prints with a name and date written beside them. Tears streamed down the old woman's face. She remembered that rainy night in the delivery room, how her son's eyes had turned cold with disgust and calculation when he had twins, and that the girl had a murmur. She had begged him, "Tianxiong, she's your flesh and blood. We have to keep her, no matter how hard it is. Boys and girls are both precious." But he coldly replied, "A sick girl can't inherit the business. She'll just be a burden and an embarrassment. Handle it. Tell everyone she was stillborn." She hated her own weakness for not stopping him. Trembling, she took the footprint and a note with an address, Amina's clinic, put them in an envelope, and secretly gave it to a completely trusted old servant who was going to the countryside. The envelope had no name, but Amina recognized the old woman's elegant handwriting. The day of the DNA test finally arrived. The process was strictly supervised by UN observers, with every step recorded and sealed. Kabusa walked into the cold, sterile lab holding Tala. He had never been in such a fancy place, stepping carefully, afraid his worn-out shoes would dirty the floor. He watched the doctor gently swab the inside of Tala's tiny mouth, his heart aching at how soft the touch was. When it was his turn, he held out his rough, red hand for the swab. He stayed silent the whole time, just holding Tala tight, as if she was his only anchor. Then came the wait. The 2 weeks waiting for results were the most divided time in Lisanga's history. In Mutoto, people worked together to knit a huge, colorful rainbow blanket for Tala, embroidered with everyone's names and blessings. They believed blood will beat money. They prayed under the tree of life every night, the drums beating constantly, sending out a silent message of belief. In the wealthy neighborhoods, the elite laughed in their clubs, "A beggar trying to be a royal dad, what a joke. Mr. Zhao donating $1 billion, what a move, consider it buying a lesson." They saw Kabusa as a greedy liar. Online, two camps, #StreetAnimalDad and #JoeEmpire, fought a fierce war of words that took over the internet. Finally, the day to reveal the results came. The investigation team held a press conference, broadcast live around the world. The room was so tense you could cut the air with a knife. Kabusa sat in the front row, wearing an old, faded shirt Amina had found for him, holding Tala like a silent statue. Zhao Tianxiong sat on the other side, in his expensive suit, looking calm, a confident smirk even playing on his lips. He believed science would prove him right. The lead forensic expert stood up and turned on the projector. The whole room held its breath. Complex DNA comparison RTS filled the screen. The expert explained in technical terms, and then, clearly and slowly, he announced based on the comparison of 20 autosomal street loci between sample A, Tala Noname, and sample B, Zhao Tianxiong, the alleles fully conform to genetic inheritance laws. The paternity index, PI, is greater than 10,000. The combined paternity index, CPI, is 9,999.99. The calculated probability that Zhao Tianxiong is the biological father of Tala is 99.999%. The room went dead silent for 3 seconds, time seemed to freeze. Then it exploded. In the last moments before many global feeds cut, people saw the color drain completely from Zhao Tianxiong's face. His calm expression shattered into pure shock and terror. He shot to his feet, his chair crashing to the floor behind him. In Kabusa, the street animal, after a moment of stunned confusion, felt a huge wave of grief and a strange, final relief wash over him. He clutched Tala to his chest, burying his face in her small, milky-smelling blanket, his shoulders shaking violently. This time, he was crying hot TRS for the STA light who had been thrown away by her own father and left to cry in a garbage heap. The eye of the storm had just unleashed its full power. That 99.999% DNA result hit like a bomb, blowing apart Zhao Tianxiong's CA fully built defenses. The stunned silence at the press conference lasted only 3 seconds before chaos erupted. Gasps from reporters, live feeds cutting out, headlines exploding worldwide. Zhao's bold billion shillings promise now looked like the cruelest joke. His face turned ghost white, lips trembling uselessly before his bodyguards dragged him away, leaving behind a broken man. But Zhao's empire wasn't defeated yet. With his wealth and power, he had plenty of ways to fight back. After the initial shock, he called an emergency meeting. His PR team scrambled into action, attack, deflect, muddy the waters. The next day, the East Africa Express ran a bombshell headline, DNA doubts. Did street animal Kabusa steal samples, rig tests? The article quoted an anonymous international forensics expert, actually a well-paid Zhao stooge, questioning the tests. Independents and hinting Kabusa conspired with foreign agitators to fake evidence and extort Zhao's billion. A blurry photo of Kabusa holding Tala outside the lab was captioned, nervous hiding something. Meanwhile, Zhao pulled strings with the police. That afternoon, 2 officers arrested Kabusa in Mutoto for illegal child confinement and attempted extortion. The slum erupted again. Furious residents gathered outside the station with signs, "Free Kabusa. Tala needs her dad." But cops refused to release him, claiming he was helping with inquiries. Locked in a BA detention cell, stripped of his old sweater, Kabusa curled into himself, terrified. What will happen to Tala? She's so small, she needs me. He didn't know she was safe at the community center with Amina and other women, guarried day and night by Mosi, Kamani, and the Tala Gua Road. The Tree of Life drumbeats never stopped. The nation split in two. Kabusa supporters. ROA read, DNA doesn't lie. Stop twisting the truth. Zhao loyalists countered, retest the samples. No way a homeless man can raise a child. Online, hashtag Zhao Empire and hashtag Street Animal Dad Hua read nonstop. The turning point came in court. At Kabusa's hearing for illegal confinement, protesters clashed outside. Inside, the prosecutor, Clea RLY representing Zhao, laid out his case. Shah RPLY, the defendant Kabusa is homeless, mentally unstable, with no income. His motives for adopting Tala A Uncle A are evidence suggests he exploited the infant for emotional blackmail and financial gain. To protect Tala, custody must go to State Welfare or her biological father, Mr. Zhao. Then the defense spoke. Kabusa's lawyer, a silver-haired woman with steel in her voice, stood slowly. Her words were quiet but landed like hammers. Your Honor, the prosecution claims to protect Tala. But who gave Tala life? The father who stuffed her in a garbage truck, or the street animal who wrapped her in his only sweater and ran through a storm to save her? Pointing to Amina holding Tala in the gallery, she continued, look at Tala now, healthy, happy. That smile sta root in Kabusa's arms. He gave her life. Her father gave her a trash heap. Her voice rose, they say Kabusa is unfit. Since when does raising a child depend only on money? What about love, responsibility, the courage to never give up? Even in a garbage dump, Kabusa may be poor, but he's proved himself a true father. Zhao Tianxiong has billions, yet abandoned basic humanity. He doesn't deserve custody. Only ownership. The gallery erupted. Supporters wept, opponents sat stunned. Then, the bombshell. Zhao's elderly mother, the one who'd secretly sent the footprint card, cracked under guilt and fear are for her autistic grandson Xingye. She reached out to Lena at the New Dawn, the only independent paper left. On camera, the old woman wept openly, I'm Zhao Tianxiong's mother. I failed. When my son ordered his daughter disque ride, I begged him, she's your flesh and blood. But he said, a defective girl is useless, a disgrace. I was weak. I didn't stop him. She looked straight into the lens, now that thrown-away child lives, and he's still lying. Still hurting the man who saved her. And the cruel joke, a bitter laugh. His precious heir Xingye has autism. Needs endless love. But my son he sees only an imperfect tool. He rejected his daughter, never realizing his son needs acceptance even more. The New Dawn released the video under the headline, Inside the Zhao Empire, A Mother's Confession. Her words, he rejected his daughter but can't love his son, shredded Zhao's model father image.
Public opinion flipped overnight.
This wasn't just an abandoned baby, it was a family warped by wealth. Support for Kabusa skyrocketed. Outside court, protesters
now CA ride baby shoes, sweater replicas, and STA light signs, chanting, "Dignity isn't just for rich men. Kabusa is her real father."
Inside, after reviewing all evidence, especially the mother's testimony, the judge delivered his verdict. This court finds Kabusa demonstrated extraordinary love, courage, and responsibility under extreme hardship.
He is Tala no name's factual and emotional guardian.
Biological father Zhao Tianxiong abandoned her at birth, violating natural law, and forfeits all custody rights.
Cha Ridges dismissed. Full custody to Kabusa.
The judge added pointedly, Zhao may petition for limited visitation, provided it respects Tala's well-being and emotional needs.
The courtroom exploded. Cheers, TRS, applause. Kabusa stepped into sunlight, blinking.
Amina thrust Tala into his RMS Emosi, Kamani, the elder's grandson. The whole Mototo family surrounded them, laughing and crying.
Kabusa held Tala tight, breathing
in her milky scent. The old sweater was gone, but the weight of fatherhood had never felt more real. He glanced Tawa RD downtown Kalamba, the source of his Naitame res, and his daughter's bloodline. But one thought burned clear: Tala is mine. No one takes her from me again. The storm had passed. But new challenges loomed on the horizon. The court's verdict was like a divorce decree. Zhao Tianxiong had lost the battle for Tala completely. Standing before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his hilltop mansion, he crushed the newspaper summary of the ruling in his fist, the crumpled pages mirroring his crumbling empire. Outside, the glittering lights of Kalamba stretched like a galaxy, but no RMTH reached his frozen ERT. The tiger of East Africa was no more, just a humiliated clown nailed to the pillory by his own daughter, a street animal, and the entire nation's outrage. His mother's confession video gnawed at him like a venomous snake.
Day and night. Just a daughter.
Why won't she disappear? Zhao Roa read in his empty office, flipping his expensive desk, sending files and crystal trophies crashing to the floor. Rage was his shield against fear, but in the dead of night, the sounds haunted him, the faint cries from the garbage heap, Kabusa's blurred figure running through the mud with the baby, Tala's innocent smile in court.
He stopped sleeping. He drank.
The face sta ring back from the mirror, twisted with anxiety, disgusted him.
Meanwhile, in Mototo, a different kind of trial was unfolding.
The blind elder Mzi Jomo had gathered tribal leaders from villages displaced by Zhao's mining empire.
No swords, no courtroom, just the ancient judgment of souls ritual.
Before the Tree of Life tapestry, elders sat in a circle, burning sage for purification. The drums pulsed slow and deep, like the EARTH's heartbeat. One by one, they stood, speaking in their ancestral tongues, telling how Zhao's corporation had stolen their sacred mountain lands in the name of progress, cheated them with unfair contracts, turned rivers black with mining waste, silenced the forests with machinery. Each story was a knife, slicing open the rot beneath Zhao's business empire.
He stole our mountains, our rivers, our peace, Mzi Jomo's voice cut through the night. Now he discards his own blood like trash. His soul is rotted by greed. His wealth is built on our TRS and our ancestors' fury. And now, his exiled daughter, reborn from the EARTH. Is this not the ancestors' punishment? His empire's foundation is sand? One gust of wind, and it will fall. The drums grew faster, louder, weaving with the elder's words into a force more powerful than weapons. The story spread, through whispers, through independent media, until the whole country was asking, how much blood is mixed into Zhao Tianxiong's gold? Pressure turned to action. Under global scrutiny, the government finally launched investigations into Zhao Mining's land grabs and pollution. Even among wealthy elites, murmurs began, have we gone too far? Forgotten this land and its people? One drunken night, Zhao drove alone to the edge of Mototo. He didn't re-enter, just watched from his CAR, the tin roof slum alive with light. The community center glowed, children's voices reciting lessons, the STA light school was being built. The Tree of Life tapestry flapped in the wind. His mother's words echoed. His autistic son Xingye, the flawed heir, flashed in his mind. Loneliness swallowed him whole. He smashed a liquor bottle against the dashboard road glass, cut his hand, blood dripped, but he felt nothing. He hadn't just lost a daughter. He'd lost his humanity. And his empire, it was already crumbling under the ancestors' judgment, and the tide of change. After the court ruling, Zhao Tianxiong's world collapsed completely. His vast wealth and power now felt like a gilded cage. He tried drowning himself in alcohol, burying himself in work, but nothing could shake the Nidame Rez, the drums of Mutoto, his mother's TRS, Tala's tiny face that looked so much like his own. The tiger of East Africa was gone. In his place stood a broken prisoner of his own sins. Under pressure from his lawyers and his weeping mother, Zhao finally agreed to the court-ordered visitation rights. When the news reached Mutoto, outrage exploded. What's he planning? To snatch Tala back? Keep that devil away from her. Kabusa sat silently under the tree of life, Tala asleep in his RMS, wrapped in the old sweater. His mind raced. The law gave Zhao the right to visit, but he'd die before letting that man hurt Tala again. He remembered Zhao's sneering street animal Rema RK, the cold order to dispose of Tala. His grip tightened. No one touches my STA light. On visitation day, the community center was packed. Residents linked ARMS, forming a human wall, eyes locked on every approaching CAR. When Zhao's black limo crawled into view, the crowd erupted in shouts. Zhao stepped out, flanked by bodyguard ARDS, his designer suit absurd against the slum's rusted tin. His face was pale, his eyes deruding, no trace of his old arrogance. He walked straight to Kabusa. The two men faced each other, one a fortress of quiet fury, the other crumbling under shame. Kabusa Zhao's voice was a dry rasp. Let me see her. Kabusa didn't move. Just held Tala closer, angling his body to block Zhao's view. When he spoke, his words sliced through the air. When she calls you daddy, she'll be afraid. The sentence hit Zhao like a hammer. He flinched as if whipped. Peering past Kabusa, he saw Tala, bright-eyed, curious, studying this strange, well-dressed man. Zhao reached out instinctively. Tala shrank back, clutching Kabusa's sweater, letting out a tiny, nervous whimper. That sound shattered Zhao. His hand froze mid-air. Here was his daughter, trusting his street animal with her whole heart while recoiling from her own father. The irony was crushing. He thought of his coldness toward his wife, his harshness with his autistic son Xingye, his hunger for power. Had he ever loved anyone truly? Had father ever meant more than ownership? Staggering back, Zhao turned and fled, practically diving into his CAR. As it sped away, Mutoto's lights and the fluttering tree of life tapestry blurred past the window. In the back seat, the mighty Zhao Tianxiong curled into himself and sobbed like a lost child. He hadn't just lost in court. He'd lost his daughter's CRT. Days later, an anonymous envelope arrived for Kabusa. Inside, a bank card, its back printed with, for Tala's education. Kabusa STA read at the cold plastic, then at Tala giggling in his ARMS. Without a word, he placed the card on Amina's desk. Amina, he said, the STA light school needs money. But Tala, she doesn't need his cash. He ride her into the sunlit year road. A real father wasn't the man who shed her blood. It was the one who'd wrapped her in an old sweater in the rain, who'd built a wall with his life to keep her safe. Zhao Tianxiong's breakdown and that anonymous education fund card were like stones thrown into deep water. Ripples spread far and wide. After the peak of public fury, the nation began reflecting on deeper issues: poverty, abandoned children, and what it truly means to be a father. Under crushing pressure, Zhao finally listened to his mother and lawyers. He made a public confession. One quiet morning, without warning, he showed up alone at the Mutoto Community Center. No bodyguards, no entourage. Dressed in plain clothes, his face gaunt, eyes tired but pleading. He bowed deeply to the gathered reporters and Wari residents. His voice cracked. I, Zhao Tianxiong, apologize for abandoning my daughter Tala, for insulting her rescuer Kabusa, and for all the harm I've caused this land and its people. I was wrong. My wealth and power blinded me to basic humanity. He announced the Tala Foundation, a massive fund for abandoned infants, maternal health care, and EARLY childhood education nationwide. He stressed it would operate independently, with public oversight, never interfering with Mutoto's self-determination. The move stunned everyone. Some still hated him, but others saw a broken man grasping for redemption. The public mood shifted from punish him to rebuild. Kabusa refused all personal compensation from Zhao but accepted the foundation's support for the STA Light School, a free school for Mutoto's poorest kids. When the first cornerstone was laid, the community voted Kabusa, the former village teacher, as its principal. Standing at a makeshift podium in his faded shirt, he told the wide-eyed children, knowledge is the wings that will carry you beyond these tin roofs. This school is your home. Amina's clinic expanded into the STA Light Medical Center with proper equipment and medicine. She became its director, finally able to save more fragile lives like Tala's. Lena, the brave reporter, got promoted to editor at the New Dawn. She launched True Voices, a column amplifying stories from the margins. But the most powerful moment came during Harvest Festival. Under the Tree of Life tapestry, the blind elder Mzijomo gathered all of Mutoto. In an ancient ritual, he inscribed Kabusa Tala, father of STA Light, into the tribal lineage scroll, Dekle Ring. From this day, Kabusa Hugwa Ride the exiled light is her true bloodline. Even the government, pressured into action, granted land rights to Mutoto residents and began replacing the most dangerous shacks with brick houses. A quiet rebirth was unfolding in this forgotten corner of the world. The STA light that had saved Tala was now lighting up all of Mutoto. 5 years passed over Mutoto like the steady flow of the Zambezi River. The old Ga mountains were gone, replaced by Ga and young trees. Most tin shacks had become solid brick homes with solar panels glinting on their roofs. A new paved road now connected Mutoto to Kalamba's main highway. But the ERT of it all was the two-story building made of colorful local stone, STA Light School. The sound of children reading aloud had replaced the old noises of struggle. It was now the truest music of this land. It was Harvest Festival again, the new beginning celebration held in the expanded community SQUA. Reflags fluttered, drums played joyfully. Principal Kabusa, we ring. A clean button-up shirt, walked onto the simple stage holding the hand of 5-year-old Tala, her hair in two playful pigtails. She wore a red dress sewn by Amina, little stars stitched along the hem, her cheeks rosy, eyes shining like real STA light. Below stood the people of Mutoto families, nurses from the STA Light Clinic, Lena from True Voices, even the blind elder Mzijomo who'd come specially for this day. Kabusa didn't use a script. He just bent down and handed Tala the microphone. Tala, sing for everyone? She nodded. Clea read her throat, and began, a sweet, Clea voice singing an old Swahili lullaby the elder had taught her, about the moon, the river, and coming home. Her song was pure, like mountain spring water, washing over the crowd. Many elders hummed along softly, TRS in their eyes. That voice was proof Mutoto had been reborn. Then, a figure Ape read quietly at the edge of the SQUA Rijao Tianshon. Dressed in simple clothes, alone, no gua RDS. He stood at a distance, watching the father and daughter on stage, listening to a song he'd never heard. His eyes were complex, shame, longing, and underneath, a strange sense of peace. As the celebration ended and the crowd thinned, Kabusa walked toward him, still holding Tala's hand. Mr. Zhao, Kabusa said, his voice calm and sincere, Tala needs a father. Not the rich man from the hill. He paused, looking gently at Tala. But one who can look at stars with her, hear her sing, hold her hand while she walks. Zhao trembled, stunned. This man, once called a street animal, was offering him grace. Shame and a fragile hope rushed through him. He knelt ruefully, hand shaking as he reached out. Tala looked at him, not afraid. She touched the new wrinkles on his face. Her hand was soft. Warmtars fell from Zhao's eyes onto her small fingers. Choking up, he lifted his daughter, his STA light, into his arms. For the first time in 5 years, he held her. Not a sea of an empire. As a father, finally coming home. Epilogue 10 more years passed. The documentary Crown from the Trash Heap won International Awa Ardias. Its final shot slowly zoomed in on an exhibit at the Kalamba National Museum, a faded blue sweater, worn at the cuffs, lying under glass. Next to it, a baby picture of Tala and the tiny silver chain engraved ZTX. The plaque read in Swahili and English, it once wrapped a child the world threw away, and in doing so, it held the dignity of all Africa. Cabusa's sweater, Tala's sta light, 2025. The camera pulled back, showing busy modern Calamba through the window. Then it rose higher, tilting up Tawa RD, the deep blue sky where one bright star was rising, shining over everything. True empires aren't built in mansions on hills. They rebuilt in the ERTS of those humble enough to embrace the light.